Okay, so we are tackling a subject that's come up several times in the last day or so, uh, privacy laws. And we want to talk about this particularly in relation to Canada, but not exclusively, thinking about regulatory gaps and comparing some of the different models in different jurisdictions. So I want to start with Commissioner Dufresne. Uh, Data we've heard throughout this discussion has been central to the digital economy for many, many years. But why haven't we succeeded in updating our privacy laws to match? And what are the consequences for AI accountability, which we've been discussing so much here at the Rialto?
Thank you for the question. And no doubt we need to modernize privacy laws in Canada. Both, we think of it, the public sector privacy law is a law from the 80s and the private sector from 2000. So both predate all of the challenges that we have, social media, certainly AI. They need to be modernized. In the private sector, there have now been 2 attempts that have not been successful because Parliament ended before debate on legislation can end. And I like to think as an optimist that it's in part because privacy is such a fundamental value to Canadians. It's a fundamental value around the world. But I think in particular in Canada, it's something that we deeply care about. We see that in our surveys at the OPC. 9 in 10 Canadians deeply care and are concerned about privacy. So that led to a lot of debates in Parliament. And one of the things I learned when I was in Parliament as the senior lawyer was that time is the most precious commodity. And so debates happen, especially in a minority parliament. So there are lots of debates on C27 in committee. Mark Shawn is here, Deputy Minister at Industry. He spent a lot of time, valiant efforts, answering tough questions from parliamentarians. So I think Canadians and parliamentarians want to get it right. And I am hopeful and optimistic that we will see a third time and it'll be successful. In the meantime, what it means is that there are missed opportunities in terms of modernized legislation. That said, current law applies to AI. This was one of the first things we said as a G7, the privacy commissioners of the G7, the strong statement on AI saying there is no legal void. We're not waiting for laws, modern laws to regulate AI. We're already regulating AI with the existing laws, whether it's privacy, whether it's human rights, competition, and we're doing that, but those laws need to be modernized. So for Canadian law, we need to have, for sure, strong enforcement powers for the Privacy Commissioner of Canada. Right now, I cannot issue orders, I cannot issue fines. So that's a big difference from the international comparators. That was made evident recently when I made a decision with my counterpart from the UK, John Edwards, on 23andMe, where he was able to issue multi-million-dollar fines and I wasn't. And so it's not that I want to be imposing fines in many cases. Ideally, I won't have to at all. But the existence of that power is an incentive, and it's an essential incentive. So we need that. We need other types of modernization in terms of cross-border collaboration, in terms of protecting children, in terms of dealing with deep fakes, in terms of having international collaboration on regulators sharing similar mandates. So there's a lot more we can do, and I'm hopeful that we'll do that soon.
Great, thank you. So, Elizabeth, unlike Canada, the UK and the EU do have comprehensive privacy regimes. So, tell us a little bit about how you think those frameworks are working, but also, in your view, why Canada's failed to keep pace and what we need to be looking for and concerned about here.
I was really attracted after spending 10 years as a privacy regulator in Canada. I was attracted to the UK when the UK was bringing in the GDPR with comprehensive coverage. So the scope that even covered political parties, imagine that. And also the ability to issue fines for the most serious infractions of the law. So I was inspired to go to the UK and bring in the new law. 2018, GDPR came into effect, and it inspired laws around the world. New laws, reformed laws that looked a lot like the GDPR. So it's not that the GDPR is out of sync with other laws around the world. In fact, 82% of people have privacy rights around the world, 130 laws. there's been this huge expansion that the GDPR inspired, not copy and paste, but it did inspire. The other thing about, and I'm going to echo my colleague Philippe here, is that strong enforcement powers are a primary importance in this space. And I'm talking about fines, but I'm also talking about orders that maybe deal with data disgorgement. So an order from a commissioner to delete a model that maybe had been trained on illegally consented data. So sometimes enforcement orders can be even more important than administrative monetary penalties. It's not all about fines, but it certainly gets the attention of organizations, and privacy and data protection and data security become a C-suite issue. The other thing I'd say about the GDPR in the UK, in the EU, is that it goes some way, not all the way, to addressing the harms of Gen AI. So, and I think in particular, rules around individuals' right to challenge automated decisions that have significant effect on their lives. So getting credit, getting into a school, et cetera, job, employment, these are significant decisions. And if they're made by a black box, individuals should have a right to actually challenge that. So these are good laws. They're not perfect laws, but I think Canada is a low-hanging fruit to modernize the laws, especially in an AI world.
Thanks, and for the encouragement to seize the low-hanging fruit in particular. Let's perhaps just follow up a little bit on the conversation between Elizabeth and Philippe. So you've argued, Elizabeth, that democratic legitimacy itself is at stake in AI governance. I wanted to ask Philippe his views on that and really hear both of you reflecting on the fact that here in Canada, we seem to keep allowing political parties to be exempt from our privacy laws. So this is obviously a dilemma for us. How do we trust big political parties and big tech to handle our data when they're not being subjected to some of the most modern standards, Elizabeth, that you've been talking about?
Yeah, so I think this is an issue that's been controversial in Canada, and in a way, it's one issue where the political parties have aligned really against the idea of having privacy law, federal privacy law, applied to them. Certainly the private sector privacy law. And instead, the model that is being put forward is to have that regulated through the election authority. And so I've spoken publicly on this to say that political parties should be regulated. They should be regulated by world-class privacy norms that are enforceable by a neutral, independent third party. It may be that you need special rules for political parties. Political parties are distinct, for sure, from industry. They're distinct, for sure, from the government. So there may need to have a special regime. I'm not against the idea that they would be regulated, say, by the elections commissioner if that's Parliament's will. But my concern was making sure that the rules are stringent. The rules that the same principles in terms of consent, accountability, dealing with privacy breaches, proportionality, that these things are there, and that there is an enforcement mechanism. So I hope that this will be, again, something else that Parliament can deal with soon.
Advanced. Yeah. Elizabeth.
Yeah, I could say that political parties are obviously subject to the GDPR in the UK and in a lot of member states in the EU, and that has not broken campaigns. Political parties continue to use personal information, but in ways that are proportionate and transparent, and individual rights to challenge how their data is being used. And if you think back, and it seems like a long time ago now, but Cambridge Analytica and Facebook, and the misinformation, disinformation, and misuse of data in that case, we're talking 2017, 2018, 2019. And I really think that was a milestone in a watershed moment in the way that the public is looking at these new technologies. And that wasn't Gen AI. That was advanced algorithms to actually influence the way people were getting their news and getting out to vote. So if you think about that, well, the train has almost left the station if we don't actually regulate this space in a world of AI and much more sophisticated technologies. So, you know, I think it's so important. Political parties do have some special democratic, it's part of our democracy that our data is used to get us out to vote. But I think a code of practice in the way that exists in the UK, I think a code of practice for political parties works. And remember that this is a whole ecosystem. It's not just political parties, it's data analytics companies, it's data brokers, and all of those parties need to play by the same rules.
And I'll just add, I think this question really illustrates a point that we can never forget, is that when we protect privacy, we're protecting democracy itself. When we protect privacy, we're protecting human rights, we're protecting the right to association. So privacy is not only a fundamental right in itself, but it's essential to other fundamental rights.
Yeah, and even though there are, as you said, particular features of political parties, this is not the excuse not to seek ways of still subjecting them to those standards. Claire, are we ready for you now?
Testing.
Yay, she's here. So talk to us a little bit about the problems with that model that you're so familiar with, particularly now that we are seeing the introduction of AI into this space as well.
Hi, everybody. It is so wonderful to be here, and thank you. I'm so happy to be on a data panel. Normally, I'm on a disinformation panel or something like that, but data is the original sin of the advertising system. So my name is Claire Atkin. I run Check My Ads. We are an ad tech watchdog. We track how ads get to websites, and the way that we see it is as a financial model. 4 years ago, I was at a conference and I saw Ellen Johnson Sirleaf. She's the first democratically elected president in Africa. And she sat on stage and she said, "Women, we often want to have influence, but sometimes you have to seize power." And I think about that in regards to this. We have runaway capitalism, we got ethnic nationalism, we have some serious issues on the internet, using the internet as a weapon against our democracies. And we have to seize power. And the way that Check My Ads sees the economy of ads is as a critical key for global authoritarianism or democracy if we regulate it properly. And, ideally, we get away from surveillance advertising altogether. But in absence of that, what can we do? Well, there are actually 3 parties of value within a media economy. If you think back to the 90s, it used to be that an advertiser would call up a newspaper and would negotiate to be as front as possible on the newspaper, and then a consumer would buy the newspaper and would see the ad. Everybody comes to the marketplace with something of value to share to the other 2 parties. And what we have instead is a system that has been completely intermediated by technology companies. So now we have Facebook deciding what news the consumer sees, and we have the ad tech system deciding how ads get to websites. Well, the question is, how does that happen? So let me zoom in to that section. How do ads get to websites? And we can apply this to Facebook. We can also apply this to the open web. There are middlemen who do it for us, and that system, no matter how you cut it, is opaque. Now, if we want fairness in the digital economy, this digital economy, which, by the way, is very close to $1 trillion and is deciding what newspapers live or die, what content gets amplified or demoted. There are 3 parties that we can choose to advocate for. We can advocate for citizens, users of the internet, on our data. We can advocate for publishers, especially local news, or we can advocate for the actual clients of this system. The ones who I think many people assume are in on the issue, are in on the game, and they're not. The advertisers are also victims. I believe that if we gave data access to advertisers about where their ads go, if we gave them know your customer laws and duty of care laws, we would have a much more reasonable media economy. I'll finish by saying I'm aging myself, but I was 14 when Enron happened. And the way that I see this is just more and more Enrons everywhere. We need to do what we do best, which is hold a financial system accountable, and we can do that.
Thanks for that, Claire, and sorry for you wanting to come in before and not being able to now. So I have a couple of questions left that I'd love to hear each of you on. But briefly, just we'd love to talk forever, but we have to share the stage with someone else next. So in the context of this theme of technology that works for people, and I know that all three of you have been dedicated towards that, how close are we to repeating the surveillance mistakes of the last decade with generative AI added to the mix? And what's the solution in your view? I know you're thinking particularly about privacy laws, but let's hear each of you on that. And maybe Claire, I'll let you go first and then make my way back towards Philippe.
Yeah, I mean, it's getting worse. we're at drastic risk of not understanding the economy of AI and not advocating on behalf of all of its victims. The AI business model is very immature currently, but as it develops, we're going to be dealing with middlemen just the same way that we deal with middlemen everywhere else. You know, I won't get into details, but some of you might have heard already that my uncle deals with cars. You know, he's a car dealer, and therefore he is responsible to the state of Florida where he works. He has to do a very long financial compliance test in order to have a dealer's license as a car dealer. He has to report about who he sells cars to. He has know your customer laws. There are all kinds of ways that we make sure that there's no fraud in the car industry, that we also have to apply to middlemen of all kinds, especially the AI companies, in the digital economy. And I think we can, but I don't see us doing that just yet.
Elizabeth.
Well, I want to end on an optimistic note, I suppose, with this question, but I would start with I am concerned about the hype around this technology. And because it's so hyped, and we hear so many opinion leaders say that it's AI that's going to solve all of our problems. It's going to solve our social problems. It's going to grow our economy. We hear that a lot. But I think it's going to take a village. And I look out this group of people out here today, civil society, academia, regulators, policymakers. We are going to have to intervene. And the starting point, I think, for Canada is, as Philippe said, strengthen the existing digital laws. Don't make the same mistake that we did with social media, where we just let it go. It was a democratic force, and really there was no action taken. We should know better, but it is going to take a village.
I think the challenge is that there are so many incentives that are so high financially for the development of this technology using our data. So we need to make sure that we put similar incentives to protect it. I think the challenge is that technology is evolving very, very quickly. It's very complex, so there could be this sense of inevitability. There can be this sense of hopelessness to protection of privacy. Why I'm optimistic is because of discussions like we're having in this room. These are happening all over the world. The groupings, certainly speaking for my world of privacy, of international collaboration, of domestic collaboration, even collaboration beyond the privacy world. I'm part of networks with competition authorities, copyright authorities, human rights authorities. So we need that. We need to modernize our laws in Canada, but we need to work together all over the world. This isn't an issue that any one country can solve on its own. So this is why the leadership on the international stage and coordination is so important. I was very happy last month to be elected chair of the Global Privacy Assembly, which is the grouping of all the privacy commissioners around the world. So that allows the amplification of the privacy principles and of our voice, the work that we do at the G7 with like-minded, like-sized economies. So we need more of that. We need to use all the levers, but also beyond the regulation, just all parts of society, industry, civil society, academia, parliamentarians. This is a huge effort, but I believe we can tackle it successfully.
So, two things I'm hearing, and it's been a theme in the discussion over today, is that it's so important to build different kinds of coalitions, particularly when we look at the nature of the way that power is being structured globally. So many countries that we've discussed, whether it's Canada or within the EU or elsewhere, can feel very weak vis-a-vis stronger states, but by collaborating, learning from one another, there's strength in that. Yet, we have seen instances in where we've known that. I'm thinking about tariffs in particular, where we know that it's more powerful to act together, but yet there has been, either through fear or incentives, to blink and to try to do something bilaterally, to try to make a deal, to use the phrase that we are hearing so often. So this is difficult. And, I heard from you, Philippe, too, that part of the reason we're not as far along as we are in Europe is partly the pace of how legislation is developed. We've tried a few times, a few step forward, a few step back. But we also know that Canadians are in support of AI regulation, even if some of our stronger partners don't want to hear that Canadians are in support of AI regulation. We have Canada's Minister of AI, who's going to be on the stage next. Just perhaps to close us off in a couple of minutes from each of you, what's one idea he needs to hear, or even two ideas if you'd like, to earn the public's trust, which is what is really needed right now?
Thank you. One of the quotes I heard the minister say was adoption moves at the speed of trust. And I absolutely agree with that. And so I think there's a real opportunity through our actions, the actions of the Canadian government, the actions in Parliament, of having legislation that really shows that you can have, and this is something I've been saying since I've been in this role, you can have innovation and a strong economy and a strong public interest and have strong privacy protections at the same time. It's not mutually exclusive. It's not a zero-sum game. So we need to make sure that we have a strong enforcement. I think this is a low-lying fruit. It's going to be low-hanging fruit. It's going to put us on the same level as our colleagues internationally. We need to make sure that we have good cross-border rules so that we can protect our data here in Canada, but also allow strong trade and economy. And we have to make sure that we have rules that protect children appropriately, that deal with deep fakes. And I'm optimistic that we'll be able to get those.
It's really important what you say about these trade-offs, right? Not to fall for the trade-offs. And we can think of other domains where that has been powerful too, that if we do X, innovation will suffer. And we also heard at lunchtime from our virtual speaker how, it is not a trade-off between regulation and creativity either. So thank you so much for that point. Elizabeth.
Totally echo what Philippe has said about innovation and safeguards not being a zero-sum game. It's one supports the other. It's really critically important. But what I would say to the minister is that I think it's really compelling to say, well, you know what? In Europe, in the UK, in all kinds of US states, and in Asia, kids have stronger rights than they do in Canada. So it's very, very compelling. All of us are parents, we're grandparents, we're teachers, we are policymakers, and it's got to be all about the kids. And I think focusing on children's safety and children's privacy is a win. It's a win proposition. And that, if I was the minister, I'd say, well, what about the kids?
Thank you for that, and also for the reminder. And I think this is really important for the Canadians in the room. At the moment, we used to look at the US as much more of a agglomeration of a number of states and trying to work in a very decentralized way. And at the moment, I see that it's very much the US we're in these negotiations with. But as you've just reminded us, in some states, in the United States.
There's some
Kids have more
states that
rights.
have special privacy rights for children. There's also some states that have AI governance laws. So, I mean, the US is not a monolith. We need to remember that.
Really important. Claire, I'll give you the last 3 minutes that we have.
From what I've seen, Canada is opening its doors to AI in a way that I think is antithetical to Canada's interests. I am Canadian. I am deeply concerned about our resources, about how the AI data centers are being welcomed here, and that is my number one thing. As far as the usage of AI is concerned and the dangers associated with people using the chatbots or the facade of AI, I want to bring it back to the fact that this is a business. You know, advocating only on behalf of Canadians as citizens is one thing and certainly very important, but there are many Canadian businesses who advertise on the internet who are scrambling to figure out how to advertise within this new paradigm. And they too deserve protection. This is a lot of Canadian revenue that is going towards these American tech companies. We are being defrauded already. The level of criminality in the ad industry is already second only to drug trafficking internationally. We need to do so much to regulate the economy of these middlemen, and AI is very much a part of that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. Some food for thought for our next panel. Can you please join me in thanking our speakers on this session on privacy?